been a long time since I actually picked up this game, but it's time to... Let's get back to this, and let's try and get remaining rounds. We've seen pretty much all of the intermediary routes and endings, I believe, when we last left off, and our primary motivation now is getting everyone else's full endings. We got Bamele's last time we played, I believe, and I believe our next up was Margret. Essentially the main core of the team. So that's the agenda so far. We gotta get the other ending for our traveling companions. Here. We've seen Bamele's specific character route, so to speak, which is essentially the final trek on night 2, going across the lake. We end up with them and have some emotional moments, and come out of it better for it and have a special ending including them. I do really like Margret as a character, so we're gonna go through this. Gonna be skipping through here or there. I know there's probably some choices at the beginning I'm gonna try and change around. Specific for Margret. We've already seen hanging out with both on the island in the middle of the game, so we could probably move past that, but... Alright, let us dive in. So our first point here. You're quite informed, Margret.
Since the time of Garvin the Exemplar. It's impressive you knew.
Margret smiles, lifting her chin into the air. The over-exaggerated action is somehow pleasant rather than belittling. She's so much happier than I had anticipated.
Yes, I do like to stay informed. And you knew too. Good. This lake shouldn't be allowed to swallow even history itself.
Speaking of history... the guide's father is Garvin the Exemplar. Right. It's an interesting fact that might come up if we decide to go onto the guards route.
My town, the one where I was born
route.
at least, was also Garvin's hometown. I was very young when he passed. The entire village went into mourning. People broke down crying in the streets. I'll never forget it. He meant much to everyone who knew him.
That's really interesting.
Oh, I have no such connections. I merely read about it.
She pauses, seeming to scan the air in front of her for something to say. That got me really interested in the guide now, because I really didn't hear anything about him all that much. But he's the son of a grand hero on that scale. It's no wonder he left and took up a thankless task like this just to get out of that shadow.
I'm sorry for your loss.
It's all right. Thank you.
My town may have taken pride in Garvin the Exemplar and what he achieved, but we weren't the ones who lost the most. That would be his family. We each remained locked inside our own thoughts, not another word passing between us. Eventually, a small light appeared on the bridge ahead, gently swaying through the foggy air. It gets closer and closer until it becomes apparent it's a figure carrying a lantern. Let's move forward, shall we? Actually, I'm curious if this choice gets us a game over if we don't do anything. This is trying to get everyone out on the bridges, instead of just taking Margret as agreed. The guide approaches Bamele and me before I have time to sort out my thoughts.
You will stay.
What?
You would have already decided to come if you had the proper mindset for a journey such as this. You two will stay.
But you don't understand.
The guide raises a hand to me, eyes cold. My words die in my throat. If he decides we aren't fit to cross, how could we persuade him otherwise?
This is bullshit! We are more than equipped to make this journey, and we know more of what it means to be in danger than most will know in all their life.
You two will stay.
Bemele's muscles tense, and I put a hand on his arm. He trembles slightly beneath my fingers, his hands curling themselves into fists, but he doesn't say another word. The guide turns around and heads onto the bridge. Margret uncomfortably looks from the guide to us.
Goodbye.
Then she steps onto the bridge after him. Bemele sighs, the anger releasing from him, as they disappear into the fog.
Farewell.
Be safe. We reached Tamara safely, though it took much longer than we would have liked. Much of the village had been damaged or even destroyed. It was my fault for taking so long. I did all I could to aid them in defending their town and repairing what could be salvaged. Bemele was disheartened by how little assistance we were able to provide. However, he could not deny how fortunate we were to have both made it on at all, especially after we caught wind of the report given by the guide to the elders for that night. Every village close enough to Sinnlos gets informed on what occurs in that lake. He does so because communities wish to be made aware if they have lost one of their own. This time his news was the death of a young woman. The one we spoke to, Margret, is gone. Oh wow. I have not heard nor seen the guide myself since then. I must assume that he is still there on that foggy shore, waiting for desperate souls to seek out his light so they may cross the lake of true darkness. Although I regret that I was not able to do more to protect these people, no one admonishes me for it. They seem sure that I did everything possible. I hope that is true, even if I cannot bring myself to believe it. Soon Bemele and I will return home, and we will once again take the long way around. My one piece in all of this is that Sinnlos will be far behind me in a matter of days. I intend to keep it there. That sound beat there really got unnerving out of the blue. Just in a way, it's a quick ending. We got an achievement there called Safe. Because we didn't put ourselves out there, we didn't take that risk, and even though the town we were setting out to protect paid the price, well, is this the best ending? Certainly not. Margret did not make it. If we go out on the lake, Margret has the best chance possible. So this is Margaret's route video. Let's go out there with her and keep her safe. Let's do that.
Margret, thank you for allowing us to join you.
Margret shrugs non-committally.
It wasn't exactly up to me. The guide said he would take you.
She hesitates, and then she looks tentatively over her shoulder at me.
But thank you for saying that. It's appreciated.
Bemele and I will do our best to be an asset on this trip, rather than a burden.
That's nice. I'm not afraid to be out here, though. Still, at least with your training, you should be able to take care of yourselves.
I admire her resilience. It's comforting to know that everyone here is so confident in their abilities. Not enough to forget how terrible it feels to be over this lake. I am not sure if that is fortunate or unfortunate. Believing yourself to be secure doesn't mean that you are. As the conversation lulls, a new sound breaks through. It's me, whispering in your ear, all around you. All around you are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out places. Sorry, Bemele, but I don't know if getting Bemele points is going to interfere with the Margret round, so I'm going to nod seriously. Bemele's face hardens in return. Serious time, no argy-bargy. Moves his free arm down. I fully link his arm with mine, and now properly settled, look forward. Margret is following the guide with some reluctance, turning back every so often to check on us. I wave my lantern to signal we're catching up. Margret returns her head to the front and quickens her pace. With a tug on Bemele, we start to follow them. Uh-oh, prowler time. It's me! I don't notice how tense I am until Bemele eases my grasp on his arm. Oh, and suddenly the guide takes multiple long and fast strides forward, throws a lantern, and jumps backwards to regain the lost distance. It's a sharp hiss and then a deep splash, and the voices of the Nixie grow quieter. Not silent, but quiet. I don't actually know if this changes anything around here, but I'll move up, thank you. Margret stands slightly off to the side to let us pass, careful not to get too close to the water's edge.
Thank you kindly, Margret.
I nod at her. But Melly and I position ourselves a few feet away from the guide, and in no time we fall into step in our new positions.
So, I don't want to sound like a child, but how much...
Okay, it doesn't actually seem to... Ooh, it's strange in the middle. Watching over the guide, until now I didn't notice how smooth his movements are. There's a sense of grace to his actions, even in the basic task of walking down a bridge. I have to actively stop myself from being distracted by it. Oop, guide speeding up. I do the same to match his pace and end up moving at a light jog.
Guide, why are we going faster?
Doesn't reply and doesn't even look back at me. Instead, his speed almost doubles. I glance back, worried, but Margret is keeping up with us. The guide keeps moving faster and faster until we're finally at an all-out sprint. Figures in the dark fog fly past us at a blur, and it occurs to me that the branching paths and the bridge appear to be sinking. I swallow my rising panic. The guide shouts something, but it's drowned out by the frantic pounding of our footsteps. I'm trying to piece together what he said. Don't stop. Turn. It takes a masterfully sharp right turn down a different path, using his own momentum in the sleek wood to slide into the new direction with no loss of speed. Actually, I think I know how that earlier choice is going to affect the plot. Despite the sudden turn, my reflexes enable me to keep close behind him.
We're making a right!
Riley's on my heels, following me to the turn. Glance back once more. Margret, although further behind than before, also makes the turn. We're all still together. Oh! As the night wears on, our strength rapidly fades. Okay, see, how I thought that was going to change was beforehand, when Margret was before us. She misses the turn. And then we get the choice where we can stop for her or keep going and leave her. In this case, I'll admit I thought that in that case, we were going to make the turn first, and then Margret was going to miss it, and we weren't going to notice until it was too late. That's nice if us being up front actually saved Margret, it seems. Now, can we proceed? Oh, hey, it's Lou. To leave Lou. We're still not ready for the Lou route yet. But we are. Margret, wait. My voice was too soft for her to hear me. Lingering for only a moment, I start following the trail Margret took. I catch up with Margret, and I notice that her eyes are glistening with tears. I try to move closer. She turns on me sharply.
What do you want?
Take a step back and keep my voice low.
I was worried.
Well, there certainly is a lot to be worried about.
Yeah. I can tell she does not appreciate my concern, but that's only to be expected. I've seen people react to grief and death in dozens of different ways, and she has every reason to be upset sitting on an island surrounded by a lake that breeds death.
I promise I will do everything I can to make sure you survive through the next night. So...
That's not the problem.
Her words begin strong, but falter and soften as she speaks. I can only watch her, without the slightest idea of what to do. Margret sits atop a large mass of roots and covers her face with her hands. I step over to her and kneel down so that I can be at eye level again.
Margret?
She twists her body away from me.
Leave me alone.
No, I will not leave you.
Margret huffs, looking my way again, only to properly glare.
Do you even know why I came out here? It wasn't as though I had anywhere important to be.
Then, why? Why would you risk this journey?
Surely you already know the heart of my distress. Haven't you ever considered what you would do if you weren't able to be a guard?
She makes a point too good to dismiss, and I inwardly flinch when I consider it.
Yes. I originally sought this path not because I wished to protect others, but because I was concerned for my own self.
I don't blame you. If I had your coordination and ability, I would have learned to fight as well. As it stands, I cannot change what I am. The settlement I come from is small, barely staving off collapse, really. The same as your town. You don't have to tell me which it is. They are all that way. My only real skill is the knowledge I've worked so hard to obtain. But, of course, a tiny village full of starving hunter-gatherers doesn't have much use for someone well-versed in history or management theories. Even if there are positions that require such knowledge, they are always given to those who are far older than myself. So what am I supposed to do? Continue to barely survive by being one of many seamstresses? Keep being pushed around by any person more powerful or with higher social connections? Leaving there would only take me back to the same position. It won't ever change that way.
She drops her head into her hands and sobs. My heart aches as I kneel beside her, watching her shuddering form. I feel helpless, but what can I do? These problems are much different from what I've dealt with. Eventually, Margret seems to pull herself together.
No, I was tired of accepting those options. Sinnlos was my only chance. Only now do I realize how ridiculous a notion that is. Anyone who comes to this lake with a sense of hope will surely have it crushed.
Are you saying you wanted to become a guide?
Yes. Laugh at my ambition if you wish. People may fear the current guide and may even blame him for the people he cannot save. But at least he has respect. Not only that, the heads of the area give him enough support to live a comfortable life. From all I'd gathered about the lake, being strong or good with a weapon didn't matter a lick. The most important qualities for a guide were being observant and shrewd, and being able to look past the struggles of someone else. But how wrong I was!
Her voice rises.
I haven't the slightest ability to deal with sinking bridges and confrontations with those horrible monsters. And even though I thought I'd lost all ability to care about the troubles of others, I still feel awful about what happened earlier.
Local woman who lost all hope realizes she's lost the last bit of hope she didn't know she had.
I haven't a chance of making it as a guide, which means I have no hope anywhere.
She covers her face once more and resumes her cries. Hesitantly, I reach out and place my hand on her shoulder. Surprisingly, she doesn't shake it off. We sit quietly like that for several moments.
You don't have to be a guide. Once this is over, you never have to come back here. There has to be something else out there for you. And if something does not yet exist, then we can create it ourselves.
Margret chortles a bit.
What a silly idea. But if I did have to choose between returning to the normal world or staying here, I'd rather go back home.
I squeeze her shoulder, and she at last looks up at me, the tears gone from her eyes.
Thank you for sharing this with me.
Thank you for listening. You have an unexpectedly soft heart.
You must have noticed the slight twinge in my face.
That isn't a bad thing, Kika.
I look away, eyes toward the ground.
I know it can hurt to care, but it also lets you lessen the pain of others. I think it would be much better if everyone cared a little bit more, rather than less.
I feel tears forming in my eyes now as I smile back at Margret.
Thank you.
Aww. I think I said this before, last time we saw this scene, but that's gotta be the brightest smile we've seen from Kika. This. Margret returns my look. Take a seat on the roots beside her, and for a time we sit in silence, simply being there for one another. Eventually I turn towards her.
Perhaps we should go check how everything is on the island.
Margret nods.
That seems like a fair thing to do. We can't keep sitting here forever, unfortunately. I'll come with you.
Are you sure you'll be alright without your glasses? There are a lot of places to catch your foot or dress on.
Margaret laughs slightly.
I'm sure I'll be fine.
Now let's... Offer her my arm. She sighs softly and chides me teasingly.
Really, you are too much.
She then accepts. Together we head towards the interior of the island. Margaret and I head through the woods, the wooded part of the island. There isn't anything that could be called a path, but we managed to pick our way through the bush quite well. Through a thinner strand of trees, we briefly catch sight of the guide standing on one of the beaches. He seems fine, but even though I'm sure he turned his head towards me, he makes no show of acknowledging us. We move on and eventually find Bemele in a jagged clearing, leaning against a tree. He's already noticed us and is looking our way, smiling. As we approach, I pick up on the sadness behind his jovial expression.
How are you faring? Any problems?
Everything is fine. We came to check on you.
How kind. I've calmed down since then.
I'm glad to hear that. Is there any way I can help or anything you'd like to say?
Raises an eyebrow at that, still grinning.
I didn't expect to see you so worried about me, Kika.
I have to force myself not to avert my eyes at that comment, embarrassment flowing into me.
You ought to not question it, you know. Simply be thankful for all her thoughtfulness.
He nods and chuckles heartily.
Right.
I feel a warmth that turns my lips up into a shy smile. Margaret nods approvingly. Bemele glances between Margaret and I, smiling coyly over the exchange. His amusement doesn't last, however. Instead, he throws his arms out wide with a sour expression.
Have you seen the guide?
Bemele is clearly asking out of a sense of obligation and makes no secret that he's not pleased to be discussing the guide. I nod in response.
I saw him earlier. He is the same as always.
Good. In that case, I'm going to stretch my legs for a bit. I feel stiff from standing in one place for so long.
Wait, I can't help but wonder if it's the best idea to keep splitting up and wandering off. We've all had time to ourselves to think. I believe we should stay together now.
She has a point. We can't be sure how safe this island truly is.
Well, I've had my fair share of being difficult lately. I can accept that if you feel so strongly about it.
Yeah, you'd better fucking stay with
I'd
us,
still
Bemele.
like to take a walk, if you two don't mind joining me.
We don't have much time to contemplate the offer before he chimes in once more.
I could also go for a nap.
I smile softly at his attempt to be accommodating to us despite our sudden intrusion. Oop, did I skip that? I would not mind walking. Oop. That feels like a choice that we didn't get. Bemele grins and glances over at Margaret.
What do you think?
I am the one who wanted us to stick together. I'm not going to put a wedge in the plan. I'll come along.
Glad to hear it.
Three of us begin our walk, conversing lightly as we meander around the island. At this point, I'm thinking to start moving through. Oh, who are we gazing at? Margaret gazes at me fondly. Gaze back. I catch Margaret's eyes, and we spend a moment sharing a gentle connection. For a brief moment, all the troublesome circumstances seem to float away from our minds, and we enjoy each other's company. Wish I could go on for so much longer, but it's only a while later that I have to speak up.
We really should rest before nightfall.
Yes, let's rest. Okay, we lost a lantern. Okay. Oh. Really, we gotta help the guide to get on the Margret route. Bemele's route is, guide gets hurt. Margret route is we save the guide. Now. Uh-oh, Bemele. Okay, no sudden movements. Won't go. Let someone else stay. The guide sucks in a breath, clearly disappointed.
Being without light is dangerous, even if you are close to another. The one who goes with me has no guarantee of making it across. You risk this entire journey being for naught. The correct decisions need to be made.
Everyone should be aware of that. Sorry, guy, didn't mean to cut you off. His words cut deep. I have no logical reason to object to going if my only solution is choosing another from the same position. I thought I'd be ready for this when it presented itself. I believed I had the strength. That was only what I wanted to believe. Noting that I haven't said anything despite plenty of opportunity, the guide continues.
I will not choose someone else, and neither will they. Can you do so? Who deserves to be saved, and who lost in your mind?
A pit forms in my stomach as the responsibility of this unspeakable choice falls on my shoulders.
Stop this! It isn't helping!
I'm not the one who can stop it now.
I try to form a coherent sentence, but whenever I try to wrench them out, the words vanish from my tongue. Having lost his patience, the guide points a finger at Margret, almost accusingly.
I've noticed the attention you've given her. Is that what this is about? Do you want to sacrifice your position to give her a hope of safety? Or perhaps you would prefer the both of you being left so you remain together? Or does your relationship not matter after all, and you don't care who gets the chance as long as you avoid a sense of guilt?
You're completely mad! Kika's reaction is what any normal human being would have. You can't pretend she's to blame!
I am aware. No one should have to take on such a grim task. That was why I did not ask it of you. I did it myself. However, that wasn't agreeable, so now the choice is hers, and it is time to decide.
Look over at Margret and Bemele, not tears flowing from my eyes. In this case... Take Bemele. The guide regards me with an unreadable expression. Without another word, he turns around and begins to walk down the bridge. Startled by the action, I take a step towards him. Turns just slightly to speak over his shoulder.
If any further discussion is needed, then you will have to do it amongst yourselves.
Guide pauses for a moment.
If you wish, you may follow. No one else is to do so.
He stares straight into Bemele's face, referring to him without saying so directly. I stand frozen in place, shocked as the guide gets further away. It sinks in that the guide is actually leaving. He won't be coming back. I whip towards Bemele.
You have to go.
Bemele gapes at me furiously.
If the choice was between the two of us, you should have gone.
The people need you more than they need me, Bemele.
That's a lie. Even if it weren't, I wouldn't care.
I don't intend on leaping into the lake. I will find a way to manage. I'm sharp and quick-witted, after all.
I weakly grinned. Bemele grimaces at the way I turned his own words against him.
Be safe, please. There isn't time left.
Bemele covers his eyes with his hand.
Damn you.
His face softens.
I will see you again. Somehow.
He lingers for only the briefest of moments before turning on his heel to catch up with the man who is no longer my guide. It was almost unbearable seeing him so hurt. I wanted to protect me as much as I wanted that for him. However, I still hold to my decision. My only regret is that it wasn't only myself who was left in the dark. Both stand alone, consumed by a creeping darkness. I gulp in a breath and exhale it slowly. My eyes are drawn back over to Margret. It is difficult to face her after the choice I made. Yet I am determined to accept my own decision and do whatever I can in order to still assure her safety. Margret stares at me wordlessly with intensity. I feel compelled to look away from her again. I refuse to give in to that temptation. Neither of us say anything as we watch the other. Margaret's narrowed eyes never waver as she peers into mine. What could she be thinking of? I can only guess. After a moment longer, Margret sighs and breaks the staring war by looking downwards. Just to rewind for a moment, I feel like we do actually have to not move up and save Margret from making a wrong turn. Because the way we were going, we just walked right into the normal ending. In this case, our party hasn't changed. The stranger was never added to it, so it's not as if it makes sense to miss him. There was a sense of loss all the same. No one even attempts mirth. However, Margret glances my way with concern on occasion. Something, anything. I let this go. I can forget that man. I'll never forget him. But we still need to get through this. Actually, we got pulled into this choice before. Let's rest.
That would be nice. To be honest, my feet are still aching from yesterday.
I can understand your plight. I'll stay put.
Thank you, Bemele.
Think nothing of it. Are either of you tired? It would be best if we could avoid all being out at the same time.
Margret scans my face for a hint of what my own answer might be.
I was planning on being awake.
I was going to stay up as well.
Grand. I'll be sure to rest easy then, with the assurance you two are keeping watch.
We both smile at him, Margret also rolling her eyes and shaking her head. Bemele sits down near the base of one of the less gnarled tree trunks in this area, settling down to sleep. He relaxes and slowly closes his eyes, only to suddenly reopen them a second later.
And please, you don't need to stay quiet for my sake. I can sleep through plenty of noise.
Bemele's perfect transition to wingman.
All right. Thank you.
The smiley shuts his eyes once again. Margret and I get comfortable ourselves. Shortly after Bemele's deep, rumbling breathing slows and steadies, Margret places her chin in her hands and watches him plainly.
Even though he said it was fine, it still feels a bit off to talk right next to someone who's trying to rest.
Do not worry too much. Bemele definitely won't be disturbed by us. He's lost in his own thoughts, if not asleep already.
If you're sure about it, then all right.
Ooh. Oh, this is definitely new. Margret gently leans her own head against a tree and seems to contemplate what to say now that we're free to discuss. I silently wait for further comment from Margret. I'm not terribly skilled at making conversation, so I trust her to take the lead. The longer the quiet stretches on, the heavier her eyelids look. Soon they close completely as she tries to mumble something. I smile to myself. Last night was arduous. Pleased that Margret feels safe enough to fall asleep. Peering between Margret and Bemele, notice how they seem far more peaceful resting now than they did this morning. I believe Margret was right about the extra company being for the best. I contentedly keeping watch, allowing them to nap. Eventually Margret begins to stir. Her eyes flutter open and she blankly stares at me, realizing what happened. I give her a small wave.
Hello.
Good morning, sleepyhead. Margret blinks a few times and begins to look sheepish.
Hello. I hope I haven't missed anything.
I softly shake my head.
No. All is well.
Well, that's a relief.
Before continuing, Margret stops to untangle her charmingly curled hair from the bark of her resting spot. She keeps yawning.
It's been quite a long time since I've dozed off in the middle of the day. Usually I'm far too busy for something like that.
I am the same.
Margret chuckles slightly to herself, though she's quick to share the reason with me.
I used to be scolded as a child for sleeping during the day.
Oh. Somehow it is not difficult to imagine that.
Were you different as a child than you are now?
Not quite. I had much the same disposition, but I was quite the night owl. I'd stay up late into the evening and drift off during the day because of that.
Well, that's understandable.
Thankfully, I've gotten in the habit of more acceptable bedtime since then.
I nod attentively at her answer. She raises a single teasing eyebrow and smiles at my eagerness.
I'm not sure what you find so fascinating.
I feel my face flush and have to break eye contact before I can speak further.
I think what you have to say is interesting.
Oh.
You're interesting, Margret.
No. Margret begins to blush as well. She stares at her lap awkwardly.
If you're sure.
We share a mutually nervous moment of silence. These awkward, sweet girls. Oh. Margret tentatively speaks up, trying to break the tension.
There was a pond in the woods behind my house. A tortoise lived there, and I used to visit it all the time. I've heard that they live for a very long time, so I used to make up stories in my mind about what he may have seen in his many days.
Margret tugs at her hand and hair and glances away from me. I smile warmly at her recollection.
I'm not sure why that memory was the first thing to come up when trying to find something to say.
I chortle softly, and Margaret jovially pretends to be aghast with me.
You don't have to laugh at me.
I continue to grin at her.
I'm sorry, it was a lovely story.
Oh. Margaret stares in surprise, then it fades into a kind smile.
Thank you.
And gaze back. I catch Margaret's eyes, and we spend the moment sharing a gentle connection. Two of us continue to trade memories with one another as we pass the time.
We should wake Bemele. It's almost time to meet the guide.
My thoughts exactly.
Walk over to the slumbering Bemele and gently shake his heavy shoulders. He stirs unhappily before yawning and flirting his eyes open. The situation comes to him right away.
Oh, it's late out, huh? Thank you for waking me.
It was no trouble. I'm glad it seems as though nothing happened today.
Margaret and Bemele both rise to their feet in a dusty, groggy sort of synchronicity.
Isn't that the truth?
Bemele leads us over to the area where the guide mentioned we were going to meet. Margaret and I sit together. She lightly rests her head against my shoulder. Oh! Three of us quietly wait for the guide's arrival, occasionally chatting with one another as we rest. And he's back. Let us move on. Boom. Now. Don't touch him or else we die. Let someone else stay. Take the melee. And now let's see if we successfully got the extended Margret route. We stay ever vigilant for any sounds of danger from the lake. She sighs softly beside me with a shake of her head.
If only I had thought of that paper trick sooner. The guide might have let us stay.
Don't blame yourself for that. The guide likely would have said that it agitated the Nixie too much, or could set the bridges on fire accidentally and was too risky to attempt.
Margaret smirks slightly and snorts at my meager attempt to voice the guide's thoughts.
That is exactly what he would have said.
I nod while entranced by my own thoughts.
If anyone should be feeling regret right now, it would be me. The reason my lantern broke was because I had thrown it to assist the guide when we were on the island.
It was impossible not to have noticed your little act of heroism. I had been wondering if that was it.
I'm sorry.
Please don't apologize. Unfortunately, we can't just leave the guide to fend for himself like he does for us. You had to be sure he remained to lead the group. It's your tendency for decision-making that is probably why he wanted you to stay.
Pangs of pain sting in my chest. No matter how much I try to ignore it, I feel terrible about making Margaret remain behind in this bleak, spiraling maze while I chose someone else to accompany the guide. I dip my head down in a hot flush of shame.
You couldn't force the guide to take the both of us. You tried.
Tears form in the corner of my eyes at her gentle words.
You're far too kind, Margaret. No matter the situation, I still made a decision, and it wasn't to ensure your safety.
She hardens her face and looks at me seriously.
When the guide said that only you could go, a part of me was thankful. You would be fine with him.
Oh.
But I admit, another part of me disliked being the one left behind. Not by the guide, but by you. It's silly, I know. Still, in a way, it's comforting that at least we're still with one another, even counting the circumstances that led to this.
Okay, this definitely feels different. I think we're on to it.
Besides, with no lantern, no glasses, and an indifferent guide, I severely doubt that I'd be faring much better under his care.
Margaret grows wistful and speaks softly.
What I'm trying to say is that I never would have been able to make the kind of decision that you had to, and I think it made sense for everyone.
I feel tears well up in my eyes from gratitude to Margaret for all her kindness. She chuckles lightly.
If that isn't a sign that I'm not meant to be a guide myself, then I don't know what is.
I dry my tears with my sleeve with a small sniffle.
You've truly decided against that?
Yes, absolutely. I never want to see any lake again for as long as I live.
Hey, if it gives you the will to find a place for yourself in the world, then I'm all for
Since
it.
I don't have any plans, I'll have to find a nearby village on the other side to stay out for a time. I'll decide what the next step on my path will be then.
Knowing Margaret won't be stepping on these bridges again after this night eases my heart greatly. The future is starting to look bright somehow. I look at her shyly.
I would still like to help you, if that's possible.
A small, bashful smile creeps onto Margaret's face.
Well, I suppose I could see what your town is like after all. I will need directions.
I beam widely at her. The air between us feels warm with a light-hearted pleasance.
Directions are not nearly enough. For that journey, I will lead you myself. I'll be sure to bring you there safely, Margret.
I will be your guide, so to speak. Much more personable guide than our guide. Margaret giggles under her breath.
Thank you. I'm positive you'll make for a better one than our last guide.
Margaret, I just made that joke. But good. Two of us share a smile together for a moment's reprieve. However, for any of our wishes to come true, we need to refocus on the situation at hand. We allow the conversation to fade out. The last of our happy voices drift away from us and are absorbed into the mist. There's still not even a trace of a prowler on the bridges, nor any Nixie in the water. Both Margaret and I silently agree to speed up a bit. Don't know how much ground we have left to cover. However, time is not a commodity we have to spare. We keep at this brisker pace for quite a while. However, eventually we have to stop for a breather again. A very light but noticeable stirring becomes audible on the lake. I hope dearly that it's only the wind. There is an inkling of fear inside me that it isn't. We cut our rest short and continue forward at an even quicker pace. After a while longer, pushing ahead, the faint silhouette of land appears on the horizon. I nearly can't believe what I'm seeing. I attempt to steady my rising heart rate. Getting close enough to land to see it only requires going towards it for long enough. But the true test is finding the bridge that will actually run aground. Still, we have an honest-to-goodness fighting chance. Margaret reaches over to take my hand into hers and squeezes lightly. I look at Margaret, reassuring. Her hold isn't out of fear, as it so easily could be. This time, it is from a determined anticipation. We start running, our footsteps in sync. We cross a long path and come across a strange sight. It's a bridge which curves in and becomes more narrow in the middle than usual. Eyeing the dubious bridge wearily, I grow nervous at the idea of getting that close to the edge. Yet we've never seen anything like this before. Could this possibly mean that this bridge is important? Then I hear it, the whispers of the Nixie. There's no mistaking it now, we've been found by them. Her confidence hasn't gone, but Margaret huddles a little closer to me. Margaret surveys the area, looking at the bridge, then to the lake. Her features are marred with concern. However, she manages to keep a brave face on.
We should keep going this way. There aren't any other branches here, and backtracking won't help us get to the shore. There's a bit of a limit on how much time we have to reach it.
I nod in agreement. At this point, going forward is our only option.
Could we possibly use burning paper to distract the Nixie again? It could keep those monsters away for long enough to cross this part. We could run after that.
Margaret doesn't reply immediately. She seems unsure of the idea. Realize it may not be possible to balance on the bridge while lighting and tossing paper torches all around.
Will you give me the supplies for it if there are any left? I'd like to make some.
Margaret dons a lopsided grin. She reads me as well as I do her.
You are very sharp, Kika, and very kind.
I blush slightly at her words. A smile from within grows on my face.
I'll crumple the paper ahead of time and hand them to you as we go. Then you can light and throw.
I gesture in agreement. The compromise is solid. Neither of us should be at too much risk if the job is shared between both her and myself. Margaret begins the monotonous job of tearing the pages out of the book and throwing them into balls while I keep watch for any signs of danger. As I stand quietly amid the ripping and crunching of paper, I can't help but let some curiosity leak out.
What is, or rather was, that book?
I don't think we had this discussion before either. We're going through the same journey, but there's definitely more discussion going on here. Margaret rips another page out of it as she answers.
It was a blank notebook. I had been filling it.
The fact that she brought it brought that with her on this journey makes the contents easy to guess. It also makes it clear why she is so readily tearing it up. I take a step out on a limb and attempt to brighten the mood with a teasing comment.
This is the second time you've saved me by finding something unexpected to light on fire. Should I be concerned that you have a pattern of setting what's around you ablaze?
Her eyebrows shoot up and she abruptly snorts.
No, you should not. The Nixie are afraid of light. It has nothing to do with me.
Yeah, Nixie are afraid of light. It doesn't matter if I happen to enjoy the act of,
I still thought it best to check.
We both share a small laugh. It certainly didn't compare to Margaret's skill in that area, but it pleases me that we were able to enjoy it regardless. Once we have a fair amount of pieces to work with, I take out my own set of matches. I ignite one by striking it on my rough leather belt, and Margaret hands me a piece of paper. I light the paper ball and toss it onto the abyssal lake. The light is jostled by a lone wave that definitely could not have been caused by the wind. Two of us begin to cross the bridge on forcibly steadied legs. I light up makeshift torches one after the other, tossing it when another flickers out. The water around us churns like a mill pond. However, nothing within the lake has surfaced thus far. I toss another fireball onto the water, but something beneath it jerks violently and precisely enough to form a wave that engulfs the flame, leaving the water dark. Margaret gasps and hastily shoves another piece of paper towards me. I swiftly light and throw it out. The water is still for only a moment before the fire is put out again by the splash of an unseen hand. They're learning. We freeze. I look at Margaret from the corner of my eye and whisper to her. Both Margaret and I are still in the middle of that narrow bridge, inches away from the edge.
Give me all the paper you have left. I will throw it back the way we came. We need to get these creatures away from us.
Margaret nods shakily and dumps the remaining pieces of paper into my hands. She empties more from her pockets and places those in my arms as well. At least we didn't skimp out on the amount made. I set them aflame as fast as possible, lighting two at a time and launching them at the edge of the water before the fire can consume the paper. A chorus of hisses erupt from the Nixie under the water as a flurry of flames come toward them. A torrent of splashes echoes from beyond the bridges as they grow increasingly agitated as the foreign objects in their lake. I keep a few pieces of paper in my hands and whip towards Margaret.
Start moving, quickly!
Margaret nods, slightly baffled. The two of us start to sprint down the narrow bridge while the Nixies swim around, distracted by the flames. Once the previous batch of lights have burned out, I ignite the rest of the papers in my hands and toss the collection of flames into the lake. That is the last distraction we will get. We force our feet to go even faster as the sounds of sloshing water and unearthly murmuring grow closer to our heels. I gasp loudly as the bridge below us suddenly lurches to the side. Two of us brace against each other to steady ourselves as the bridge slowly tilts back into place. We gulp as we eye each other. It was not something we had prepared for. The bridge can't hold weight properly. If we step out of line, it could break. Yet we aren't afforded even a moment's reprieve as the sounds of the Nixie break through the haze of racing thoughts. We advance down the bridge, this time more aware of how we place our footing. Our quick pace means some mistakes are inevitable. The bridge starts to tilt again and eager eyes look up at us from right below the waterline. It bends toward the waiting hands of the Nixie, and I pull Margaret back while leaning my weight to the opposite side. And a small miracle, the bridge is able to even back out. I release the breath I had been holding. Before the monsters can make a move on us, we push ahead. Finally, the boards start to widen out again. Margaret relaxes her shoulders as they stop needing to brush against mine. My heart pounds for the adrenaline that fought against the need to move slowly and carefully despite the insane danger. The chorus of whispers increases as we get out of easy reach. The view of the shore draws steadily closer as we go down the path ahead. As it does, the light of the sun starts to barely peek out over the heavy fog. Margaret says something. It's too quiet for me to hear what it was, and I don't have the breath to ask her to elaborate. I'm running incredibly low on energy at this point, and I can tell from the way that Margret is panting that she too is very tired. Then a dull thud vibrates through the boards.
Margret?
Oh no! I slide to a stop on the slick bridge and turn to face behind me. Margret is on the ground. I don't waste even one more moment before going to her
Are
side.
you alright? Can you stand? We have to move.
No, I can't keep running anymore, Kika. It's too much. There's nothing out there. There's never been anything out there. You can go by yourself.
You are not giving up on me now, girl. Margret. My heart sinks at her words. Suddenly our urgent situation seems much less important. I crouch down to be at her level. She bites back tears and tries to push me away.
I know you understand better than most that you can't force someone to do something. I can't do that here. But I can ask if you truly want this.
I rest my hand firmly on her shoulder.
Margret, you can make it. We can make it. Even if we don't know what's at the end of this path, we can see it with our own eyes.
My voice starts to shake and I barely get out one last sentence.
I don't want to go if you're not there with me.
Oh. Margret looks up at me through those tears. She's scared, but there's no longer a look of resignation. Still trembling, she starts to rise. I stand with her, reserved smile forming. Once on her feet, Margret takes some deep breaths, trying to calm the panic inside her. She looks at me fiercely and nods. She's going to come. Tears of my own start to fall. I offer her my hand. Margret takes it without hesitation. We start to run again, and this time we do not stop. We cannot stop. The ever slowly moving sunrise is our final chance to make it through this nightmare. My fists are curled tightly as we run, our lungs burning from the sharp, humid air. Keep pushing and pushing with nothing but a stubborn refusal to accept this as the end carrying our feet. Until eventually, we make it. Practically burst onto the shore, rushing onto the solid ground and nearly collapsing. Both manage to distance ourselves from the waterline a decent amount before we earnestly crumple to the ground and try to steady our erratic breathing. Tears form in my eyes and flood onto my cheeks. We made it. Against all odds, we finally made it to the other side in one piece. I look towards Margret fondly. It fills me with joy that we both are here, just as I believed we could be. She's smiling. After a moment of rest, I force myself off the ground weakly and stand on quivering legs. I face Margret again, and this time she locks eyes with me. Margret pushes herself up and scrambles toward me. She moves in such a hurry and on such unstable legs that she manages to get tangled in the hem of her skirt and tumbles. Whoop! We're close enough that I'm able to catch her before she hits the ground. I support her as she straightens her skirt out. I'm deeply grateful that I'm able to be there for her. She smirks at me, and I have to assume she's thinking about how my behavior makes me truly a typical guard. Oh! Suddenly we're embracing. A giddy laugh bubbles up from her, and she buries her face in the crook of my neck. She hugs me tightly. I can't keep the blissful smile off my face, and a new waterfall of tears spills down. Margret lifts her head from my shoulder and gazes into my eyes. Neither of us let go as we stay in place and drink in the sight of each other. Our foreheads brush lightly as we relish in the joy of being alive together. And then Bemele pops up. Oh, you made it. It's good to see you two. Noise beside us brings me out of the moment. I frantically turn to see where it came from. Disturbance is enough to immediately shoot the tension back up. It's an immense surprise and thrill when Bemele emerges into view. He stands a little ways away, almost gawking at what could potentially be a pair of ghosts in front of him. His momentary shock dissipates and a relieved smile easily replaces it. He murmurs quietly,
You're alive.
My frayed nerves settle again. He made it to the other side. Our reunion is intentionally interrupted by the final member of our group. The guide, who seemingly materialized out of nowhere, doesn't have a mind to let us get caught up with emotions on the shores of the lake.
It is time to leave this place. There is nothing left for you here.
Upon being addressed by him, I rise to my feet. He has a calm look on his face, though there is force behind his serenity. I open my mouth, attempt to speak, However, I quickly realized that I had little idea of what to say. He left us behind, but it did indeed lead to success. Must I admit that forsaking others is correct? Was that not truly the only way? And the fog is removed from my thoughts. After everything that has happened, it becomes clear. I harden my face to match his serious disposition. There's something he is certainly right of. This lake is not a place to linger. Going round and round in circles will never help. We cannot submit our lives or our minds to Sinnlos. What I must do if I truly want to defend others is to keep them from coming here at all. When I return to my village, I intend to make that information acutely known to our elder. To happen, I must leave.
Goodbye.
His eyes narrow as he looks over me. I begin to feel uncomfortable under his scrutiny, but for a moment I could swear I noticed him smiling slightly. However, it could easily be a trick of the morning sun. Bamile merely scoffs. It's perhaps for the best that Bamile is refusing to acknowledge him rather than deciding to get caustic. At this point, nothing can be done about that man. Margret steps over to us and regards the guide with a pointed expression.
This will be goodbye for us as well. I appreciate the opportunity you've graced me with. However, I won't be returning here.
The guide offers no reaction to her statement. In fact, he says nothing at all. Instead, he simply turns on his heel and leaves us alone once more. We make no attempt to stop him, watching him silently as he disappears into the landscape. It's painfully clear that no matter how meaningful this is for us, it's only another day in his life. Once the guide fully departs, Margret frowns harshly.
This all seems so terribly sad.
I peer at her empathetically, reach over to her hand. I take it in mine tenderly. She looks down at our joined hands, and then at me, and manages a bittersweet smile. I regard the lake again. It's isolated and desolate, the mist still covering the surface like a suffocating rag.
Kika? Kika!
Margaret's worried voice beckons me back to the present. I turn my wistful face to determine as I realize that there's still much to accomplish ahead of me.
We can't stay here any longer.
Margret considers the words with concern. Despite her hesitation, she brings herself to ask a tentative question.
Would it be alright for me to come along?
Absolutely.
Of course. The village I'm going to isn't exactly safe. However, you are more than welcome to join me, and I will make certain that you are protected there.
Margaret's lips turn up into a warm smile as she nods graciously.
Thank you. I need some place to go so I can procure a new pair of glasses and a new way to make a living. Besides, you're forcing yourself to act like nothing affects you, and that simply won't do.
Oh, I blink a few times, unsure of how to respond to that. I resign myself to looking away with an awkward smile on my face. Margret hums a teasing tune as she cracks a grin. Her eyes drift closed for a moment, and she grows reflective.
You know, it's very strange. I felt trapped in my own life. It was as if no matter what I did, I was always running in place, and there was no way to escape the small, miserable bubble I existed in.
She sneaks a glance at me before continuing.
That maze of bridges out there was much of the same, but we found a way out of that miserable place, and there was something for us at the end after all. I wonder if miracles like that can happen in the real world too.
Absolutely. It seems I'm not yet out of tears as I feel their presence growing.
There is. I'll make sure of it.
Margret regards me with a familiar, teasing smile.
Are you still holding on to that idea from the island? Is there anything that can shake that determination of yours?
I half chuckle at that question.
I'm sure there has to be. However, I won't allow something that could break it to occur.
Margret chortles before she grins at me charmingly.
I'm glad. That's something I treasure about you, Kika.
Can't help being a bit bashful. It is so nice to let myself feel how I honestly do. Well, he clears his throat, capturing my attention. I drag my eyes away from Margret to him with a simper on my face for ignoring his presence all this time. Then I snap back to Margret. Ignoring his presence all this time, and then I go immediately back to ignoring his presence. Oh, Bamile. I meet her deep inside her eyes.
It truly is time for us to leave this place.
Margaret's face glows with bravery and a new sort of inner strength. You love to see it.
Yes, let's go.
From them both, really. They both got something immeasurably good from this experience. How horrible it was. I turn around and walk away from the lake. Without looking back or stopping, I close my eyes and whisper beneath my breath, soft as a falling leaf. To all those left behind within the lake of Sinnlos, I offer one last, reverent parting word.
Farewell.
Farewell. I hurried to Hammer as quickly as I could. I already failed to help another during my journey. I could not afford to fail the villagers. They were grateful to see me, for it was a desperate situation indeed. The urgency meant that my mind was occupied with other matters. I worked tirelessly to aid Hammer's own guards in forcing back the brigadiers. But during the moments of calm and when the sun went down, I would remember the lake. Billy was of great help during that fight. His outwardly positive demeanor lifted the spirits of many around him, but I could see from the shadows that in his eyes that he hadn't forgotten what we went through. Rather than be paralyzed by it, he is pushing himself to be even stronger. I admire that about him, and I fully intend to support him the way he does for me. After putting Sinnlos behind her, Margret explained where she was originally from, though she had no plans on returning. Despite leaving everything she knew, Margret boldly looks toward the future. I respect her for her bravery, and I hope for nothing more than the best. I was finally able to learn the name of the stranger we met on the bridges, Lou. As the guide predicted, he did not survive. He had requested to cross and been denied. He must have been truly desperate to attempt the crossing alone. I can only pray that those who cared for him will learn the truth of what happened. I have not seen or heard the guide since then. He will remain obscured in that realm of fog and fear, a mysterious light off in the distance that is ever out of reach of the real world. As the task at Hammer comes to a close, I mentally prepare myself to return home. I'm all too aware that things can never be as they were. I know for certain is that my village elder must be told that no one is to cross Sinnlos again. I've already told the Hammer leaders the same. Not a single more person should have to experience what we did. Its darkness will remain with me for the rest of my days. Though so much was lost, I believe that our lessons will keep the others from suffering the same way, and in the end, something will be gained. Margret returned to my village after the task at Hammer was over. I insisted that she stay with me for a time while she grew accustomed to her new surroundings. While she still liked to tease that all villages were the same, she was grateful for the offer. We were working together to find a new career that is better suited to her talents than the one she was pursuing before. It does not seem hopeless. She has already managed to acquaint herself with the village elder. I believe it won't be long before she finds a place she can truly shine. It's incredible to still find fulfillment in these small joys, despite the pain and hardship. I will continue to do all I can to protect others, as well as the life that I have come to love. Oh. That was still really sweet. Margret finally gets a chance with a fulfilling life she deserves. Say, we don't always have talents that fit into the traditional roles that society expects you to fill. The office job. The vital direct labor job. That 8 to 5, 5 days a week, work-life job, sitting in an office. Doesn't always fit in for everybody. In this case, Margret just doing seamstress work. Because that's the only thing that could make money for her. I feel like that's a very relatable situation she's in. a stifling job, so to speak. One that feels suffocating and that there's nowhere for you to go. Or it's not for you, but what else are you gonna do, right? Feel trapped. And if this journey is anything to go by, sometimes you gotta put yourself out there and take that risk in order to get out of that perpetual downward cycle, you know? But there is a life for you out there that's fulfilling and comforting, and that'll give you that safety that you so very much deserve. And this seems like an appropriate place to leave off. This has been Margaret's journey. That was very sweet, fulfilling. I enjoyed that personally. And what can I say? In both Margaret and Bamele's routes, while I'd say Margaret's was even more so than Bamele's, but both of them, I do like how both of them were not just focused on the central character, but they also played a vital role in Kika growing as a person. It's really cool to see. It should go both ways. You should be able to both grow together, better each other. It's what you deserve. Anyways, after that emotional story beat, next time we'll be pursuing the guide. We'll see if that route can top this. My guess would be no, but this game has surprised me so far. And even still, there's that personal curiosity about the guide's story, which you've gotten bits and pieces of, but you haven't gotten through that shell of his. Curious how far that will go. How much we get to know about him. Will we actually have some sort of ending with him, or will we end up as a guide alongside him? We'll see next time. For now, let's enjoy this just picture that makes your heart feel full and warm. Until next time. Until then. As always, thanks for watching.